Good morning/afternoon/evening. Today, we're going to talk about how to build wider shoulders fast, specifically by targeting the side delts, also known as the lateral deltoid. If your goal is that capped, athletic look, this is the muscle that matters most. But before we talk about exercises, we need to start where all effective training begins, with understanding the system. To effectively build wider shoulders, it's essential to begin with a clear understanding of the anatomy involved. The shoulder or deltoid muscle is divided into three main heads: the anterior front, lateral side, and posterior rear delts. While all three contribute to the function and appearance of the shoulder, it is the lateral deltoid that is primarily responsible for the width of your upper body. This muscle sits on the outermost part of the shoulder, and when it is developed properly, it creates that broad V-tapered look that is often associated with strength and athleticism. The lateral deltoid's primary role is shoulder abduction, lifting your arm out to the side away from your body. However, it's important to note that this movement must be executed at the correct angle. A slight forward lean during lateral raises, for example, changes the line of resistance so that the lateral head is more isolated and other muscle groups, like the upper traps, don't take over. Many people mistakenly believe they're training their side delts with basic shoulder movements, but unless the movement pattern and angle are correct, they end up activating surrounding muscles instead. Another key concept is that the deltoid does not operate in isolation. The nervous system recruits multiple muscles to stabilize and assist with movement. That means precision in your exercise form is essential if your goal is to preferentially recruit the side delts. You have to create an environment in the movement through body positioning, tempo, and range of motion that places maximum tension specifically on those lateral fibers. Once you understand the specific function and location of the lateral deltoid, you can then tailor your training to truly emphasize it. Without this foundation in anatomy, most workouts end up being inefficient, with energy being spent but not directed toward the actual goal of increasing shoulder width. Building wider shoulders begins with understanding the specific demands of muscle growth and how they apply to the lateral deltoids. In hypertrophy science, one principle stands above the rest: mechanical tension. This refers to the force placed on muscle fibers during a contraction, and it's the most powerful stimulus for muscle growth when applied correctly and consistently. Simply put, it's not about how much weight you lift, it's about how much targeted stress you place on the specific muscle you're trying to grow. The side delts respond best to controlled movements that maintain tension throughout the entire range of motion. Unlike other muscles that may benefit from heavy loads and explosive reps, the lateral deltoids require precision. This is because the shoulder joint is incredibly mobile and involves several surrounding muscles that can easily take over if form slips. For example, when you go too heavy on a lateral raise, the traps and momentum from the hips often kick in, robbing the side delts of tension. That's wasted effort. If you want to grow the muscle fast, every rep must be designed to challenge the delts, not just move the weight. Another aspect of mechanical tension is joint positioning. For the lateral delts, raising the arms directly out to the sides with a slight forward lean and keeping the pinky slightly higher than the thumb changes how gravity affects the muscle. This subtle shift increases the load on the lateral head and reduces compensation from other muscles. In practical terms, this means lighter weights, slower tempo, and a focus on form will get you better, faster results than simply trying to muscle through reps with poor mechanics. The nervous system also plays a role here. When you train with deliberate, controlled reps, the brain develops a stronger neuromuscular connection to the target muscle. This leads to more efficient recruitment of motor units in that muscle over time. So the more intentional your reps are, the more you train your brain and body to activate the correct muscle fibers, This builds better control and, ultimately, bigger, stronger shoulders. Among the many exercises people use to target their shoulders, only a few truly maximize the activation of the lateral deltoid. This is where science becomes incredibly valuable. Electromyography, or EMG, is a tool that measures muscle activation during specific movements. When applied to shoulder exercises, EMG studies help identify which movements actually produce the greatest engagement of the side delts, and the findings might surprise you. Traditional overhead pressing, while effective for overall shoulder development, does not significantly isolate the lateral delts. Instead, it favors the front delts and triceps. To specifically target the lateral head, we need movements that emphasize shoulder abduction without allowing dominant muscles like the traps or anterior deltoids to take over. This is where lateral raises come in, but not all lateral raises are created equal. One of the most effective variations is the dumbbell lateral raise with a slight forward lean. Leaning forward 10 to 15 degrees minimizes trap involvement and aligns the deltoid fibers with the direction of resistance. Another superior option is the cable lateral raise. Unlike dumbbells, cables provide constant tension throughout the entire range of motion, including the bottom of the lift, where dumbbells offer very little resistance. This tension profile increases time under tension and ensures the lateral delts remain activated throughout the entire rep. A third highly effective movement is the upright rows, specifically using a wide grip and lighter weight. When performed with elbows flared out and lifted to shoulder height, this exercise directly stimulates the lateral delts. However, the key is to maintain strict control, limiting the range of motion to avoid shoulder impingement and focusing on the angle of elevation rather than just pulling the weight upward. These exercises are not about lifting the heaviest weight. They're about precision. It's not uncommon to see people performing lateral raises with poor form and excessive weight, thinking they're challenging their shoulders, when in reality they're training everything but. The most effective side delt exercises require full control, clean execution, and attention to form. That's how you get measurable, fast results, by applying the science of muscle activation to every single rep. When training the lateral deltoid, one of the most overlooked but critical factors is neuromuscular control, your brain's ability to communicate efficiently with the muscle fibers you're targeting. This connection isn't automatic. It needs to be trained, developed, and refined. The stronger the connection, the more precisely you can recruit the side delts without allowing other muscles to take over the movement. This is especially important with smaller muscle groups like the deltoids, which are easily overshadowed by larger and stronger neighboring muscles like the traps, chest, or upper back. Most people lose potential growth by rushing through reps and using momentum. When you swing the weight up or rely on body motion, you're not actually loading the delts, you're bypassing them. Muscle growth requires controlled, deliberate repetitions where every phase of the lift serves a purpose. This is where the eccentric portion of the lift becomes powerful. By slowing down the lowering phase, usually 2 to 3 seconds, you increase time under tension, which has been shown to stimulate more muscle fibers and trigger greater adaptation. Additionally, keeping the rest of your body stable during the movement forces the delts to do more of the work. That might mean using a lighter weight than you're used to, but in return, you'll be isolating the muscle more effectively and getting more out of each set. This also reduces the risk of joint strain and long-term injury, which are common when form is sacrificed in pursuit of heavier loads. Training the nervous system to fire efficiently into the lateral delts doesn't just improve performance in that specific movement, it makes every subsequent workout more effective. Over time, this leads to quicker gains because you're consistently hitting the target muscle with full engagement. This kind of intentional control is what separates casual lifters from those who see fast, measurable results. In essence, the goal is to move with precision, not just power. The better you can direct force to the side delts, the faster and more noticeable your shoulder development will be. To accelerate growth in the lateral deltoids, it's essential to understand how training frequency and volume influence muscle adaptation. The side delts are a relatively small muscle group with a high capacity for recovery, meaning they can handle and benefit from more frequent stimulation compared to larger muscle groups like the chest or legs. This makes training them 2 to 3 times per week not just effective, but optimal. Spreading the volume across multiple sessions allows you to maintain higher quality and intensity in each workout without overloading any single session. The key is to strike a balance between volume, the total number of challenging sets you perform, and intensity, which refers to how close those sets are to muscular failure. For the side delts, a weekly volume of 10 to 15 well-executed working sets is generally ideal for hypertrophy. These sets should be taken close to failure with perfect form, using exercises that keep tension on the lateral delts throughout the movement. Rather than trying to cram all 15 sets into one exhausting workout, splitting them across several days helps reduce fatigue and ensures you can give maximum effort each time. It's also important to consider the law of diminishing returns. Beyond a certain point, adding more sets in a single session leads to less muscle activation and more systemic fatigue, which can reduce your performance in future sessions. That's why training more often with moderate volume is not only more sustainable, but more productive. It also supports better neural efficiency, enforcing the motor patterns required to isolate and engage the lateral delts consistently. Another benefit of higher frequency is improved recovery signaling. Every time you train, you trigger a cascade of biological processes: protein synthesis, hormonal response, and neural adaptation. By spacing out your training, you keep these processes active throughout the week, essentially telling your body repeatedly, this muscle needs to grow. This repeated signaling is far more effective than an occasional high-volume assault on the muscle, which may lead to soreness but not sustainable hypertrophy. So, wider shoulders don't come from occasional effort. They come from smart, repeatable programming. The lateral delts thrive on consistency, precision, and appropriate stimulus delivered frequently over time. To fully support lateral deltoid growth and ensure your training efforts translate into visible results, you must look beyond the workout itself and into the broader physiological environment that drives muscle developments, specifically recovery, hormonal balance, and nervous system regulation. Muscle growth doesn't happen during training. It occurs between sessions when the body repairs and rebuilds tissue, provided it has the right conditions to do so. If those conditions are compromised through poor sleep, chronic stress, or insufficient nutrition, your progress will be limited no matter how effective your workouts are. Sleep is perhaps the most underrated tool for muscle growth. During deep, non-REM sleep, your body releases the highest levels of growth hormone, a key driver of tissue repair and hypertrophy. Missing out on this phase of sleep reduces recovery and blunts the adaptive response from your training. Aiming for 7-9 hours of high-quality sleep per night isn't just general health advice. It's directly tied to how well your muscles grow and how efficiently your nervous system functions. Stress management is another pillar of effective recovery. Chronic stress elevates cortisol levels, which can interfere with testosterone production and increase muscle breakdown. Strategies like controlled cold exposure, early morning sunlight, and deep diaphragmatic breathing can lower baseline cortisol and reset your circadian rhythm. These aren't fringe biohacks, they're grounded in physiology and help create a more anabolic, growth-friendly internal state. Nutrition also plays a foundational role. Without adequate protein and caloric intake, your body won't have the raw materials needed to rebuild the micro-tiers that training creates. But even more than macronutrients, micronutrients like magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D are critical for hormonal regulation and muscle function. Skipping these fundamentals undermines the entire training process, no matter how disciplined you are in the gym. Finally, nervous system regulation is key for both performance and recovery. High-intensity training activates the sympathetic nervous system, your fight-or-flight response. But growth occurs in the parasympathetic state, rest and digest. The faster you can transition from one to the other, the faster your body recovers and adapts. Tools like post-workout breathwork, mindfulness, and even simply walking outside after training can accelerate this shift. In short, building wider shoulders isn't just about what you do in the gym. It's about creating a biological environment that supports growth through quality sleep, hormonal balance, stress regulation, and recovery-focused behaviors. When these systems are aligned, your training becomes exponentially more effective. In conclusion, building wider shoulders, specifically through targeted side delt development, isn't just about lifting weights. It's about understanding the full picture, the anatomy, the science of mechanical tension, the precision of movement, and the power of consistency. You must train with intention, choosing exercises that isolate the lateral deltoid and executing them with control, not momentum. You must respect the role of the nervous system in recruiting muscle fibers, and you must commit to a smart training frequency that balances intensity with recovery. But most importantly, you need to support your training with the right internal environment. That means prioritizing deep, restorative sleep, managing your stress to control cortisol, and fueling your body with the nutrients it needs to grow. The fastest path to wider shoulders doesn't come from doing more, it comes from doing it right. With strategy, discipline, and a deep understanding of how the body truly grows, shoulder width becomes not just a goal, but a result. Thank you